Hmm. I would
because
hate to be the person to take the dead bodies to these islands.
And like, you think about like these big burial mass graves, all these people back in the 1300s, like, they're nameless. There's nothing of them left. They weren't, you know what I mean? Like, they were just thrown in a pit. It's sad. In the 1400s, they invented a thing called a lazaretto, which was a hospital to quarantine of ill and potentially sick people. So it was their way of separating people they thought were going to be sick or treating people that were sick. Venice is who invented the term quarantine, which we're using all the time now. So it's kind of interesting. Travelers coming into Venice would have to stay at a lazaretto before they could go amongst the city. And quarantine comes from the word quarantato Jerome, I think is how you say it. But it's Italian word for 40. So 40 days. So quaranato is 40. And then the other word was days. So that's where quarantine has come from. They invented it. So they thought 40 days was how you would quarantine a person. If they lived after 40 days, they could come back to the world. If they didn't, then they were dead anyway, so it didn't matter.
It only took 5 days for them to die of the plague. They had a quarantine for 40?
I think it must have been the symptoms only lasted 5. You could have been maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it had a long incubation period, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, some that were sent to the lazaretto, and I could be saying that wrong. Lazaretto. I don't know how you say it. I'm pretending I have an accent right now, and I don't know what I'm saying. Some may have lived because they weren't sick and they just thought they were. But most of the time, even if you weren't sick but you were sent there, you're going to get sick. So it didn't matter. Right. You're going to get, it was a death sentence, basically. So they decided, oh, wait. Maybe we should have let's have 2 different ones. One for the plague victims, the ones that actually were sick, and the one that we weren't sure, so that they had better chances. The Lazaretto Vecchio was near the island of Poveglia, and the Lazaretto Nuovo was in a North Lagoon. So they had 2 different ones at different islands now that they could send ones that they knew for sure were sick and treat them, and the ones that they knew weren't really sure, but we're going to quarantine them because they were exposed in some way. But so many people were getting sick that 2 of them were not enough. They didn't have enough room for them. So they started sending the sick to Poveglia. See it different every time I say it. Can't talk right. Okay. But the sad thing is, Poveglia didn't have a nurse or doctors on the island because the people they sent to Poveglia were not there to get cured. They were just there to spend the rest of their days to die. So basically going there, it was a death sentence. When you went there, you knew you weren't going to make it. Venice started exiling anyone with symptoms to a death sentence on the island. And it didn't matter your status. If you were rich or poor or whatever, it didn't matter. People were scared and they didn't want to get it. So they would send you to the island, no matter who you were. If you were breathing funny, if you had a mark on your anything would get you sent there. So it's kind of scary.
Terrible. Yeah.
And doctors at this time, to prevent getting it, that's where the plague masks, were the famous plague masks were the long nose, beak nose, where they put the herbs in to kind of filter the air. They thought that would keep them from getting sick. And, that it mostly probably because the air wasn't being exchanged between someone. It was like a mask now. So sadly in Venice, they had like the one wave of the plague in the 13 and 1400s, then another one in 1570, and another one in 1630. So they had 3 waves of the plague go through Venice.
That happened all over Europe, though.
Like, yeah,
the plague just kept going. It would it didn't even really go dormant. It just kind of went in waves. It went this way, and then it would get sent back this way, and it was just like it just kept getting like right now with COVID.
Yeah.
You have surges where it's like then people Yeah, like, most everybody, okay, we're safe. And then some people aren't safe, and then they're bringing it back, and then it's mutating, and then it's infecting everybody
Exactly.
again, so.
Um, People were literally dragged from their homes if they were suspected to have the plague. They would load it on a ship and sent to the island. And during peak points of the plague, the ferries that carry the sick to the island literally went continuously, nonstop, back and forth, loading people on, sending them over, loading people on, sending them over. Sick lay in 4 to a bed. Workers would collect the dead, and put them in mass graves all day long without a break. Some weren't even dead yet. They were just too sick to move or talk. So they just got thrown in.
What about the people that worked there?
I don't know who that must have been people that either were people no one liked or they were, I don't know who got that job. Cause that
They're
sucks.
drinking that fire cider shit that they talk about with the
vinegar
and the hot peppers and the horseradish.
People do that now,
the ginger. I
People
know
were
Renee
doing
makes
that
it.
yeah. So
that will kill everything, including your taste buds.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
The mass graves were located on the north side of the island, and they became known as the plague fields. So when they became filled, they started burning everyone. So they'd pile them up, grab the bodies, pile them up, then catch them on fire. And then the, ash and everything was covering the ground. There was a limited amount of land to use on the island. Obviously, you're on an island. There's only so much you have. So bodies are actually like overflowing into the sea. So they had to start burning them because they're starting to come out erode from the sides of the island and going into the water. So they started burning them, and the smoke would fill the air and could be seen miles away.
Yuck.
It was awful.
Oh.
Can you imagine the smell?
I can't. Nope. Yuck.
Nope.
Awful.
It'd leave nothing but ash in those plague fields, and people were often burned alive, again, on accident, because they would figure it out once they started screaming, because they thought they were dead because they were, they couldn't move. They were so lifeless, but they were actually still alive. It was horrible. It's just a nightmare. I can't even imagine living during this time.
That is awful. Or the people that had the workers that were in charge of throwing, because you're the whole time scared that you're going to get the plague. Yeah. While you're trying to sort through dead bodies of men, women, and children, and hopefully they're dead. And maybe they're not all the way dead.
You find out one wasn't. Yeah, the first time you find out one wasn't, you're gonna be horrified to do it again. You know what I mean? It was just awful. And like I said, on a peaceful day, like on a clear, unclouded day to this day, if you can see to the bottom of the water around it, you can still see bones and things from the people that were buried on the island. There were so many people. They say that the island soil, because they burned so many people and there's so many people buried in it, that it's said to have 50% human material in it.
Oh.
So you're testing of the soil.
Yikes.
You're going to find soil and other things, but 50% is going to be human material. Because you think of how big an island is, and that there's hundreds of thousands of people being buried there from 3 waves of plagues.
Buried and burned.
So the ash of the people that were burned is mixed in there. So it's awful.
That is awful. Don't grow vegetables there.
No. Like fishermen to this day, if they throw their nets too near the island, they'll get bones inside it.
Oh,
their net.
That's horrifying.
Because the island's eroding, and so things are coming out.
Yeah. It's mostly made of bones, basically.
Yeah.
The bone island.
The bone island. It is. It's like the whole new foundation of the island is bones. In 1645, a series of octagonal fortified islands were created in the lagoon to protect against against invaders. prisoners caught during this time, during the war that was going on, were burned with the plague victims. So their bodies are there too. There's also numerous sunken French ships in the sea surrounding the octagon that's built in front of it. And I'll show a picture of it. It's kind of cool. They built an island in front of the island to protect the island, if that makes sense. So now we have plague victims on there. And then the prisoners that were caught in the war that were burned with the plague victims. And then all the ships that sunk around the island with the bodies in the water. So there's just more and more dead people on this island.
This is awful. It's probably very haunted.
Yes, exactly. We'll get to that.
Oh.
So they're estimating 160,000 plague victims are burned or cremated there. And you can still see that. And if a fisherman, like, you can see the fishermen don't go near the island, first of all, because who wants bones in there? Yeah. But if they get a bone in their net, they throw the whole catch out. They don't care. They're like, we don't want this curse on us. So they'll throw all the stuff they got in that net. They won't just take out the bone. They throw it all out because they're like, nope.
Yikes.
And, they were saying that they could hear the screams of the people being burned on the field when there was no one there. So, like, the ghosts, you can still hear their screams.
Oh.
Yeah. Napoleon's army actually utilized the island, the ghost stories around the island about how people would say that you could hear the moans and stuff from the island. And he hid it protected his stores of gunpowder and weapons. So he was able to store a bunch of stuff there because no one people are too afraid to go there. They didn't want to go there on the island.
Well, I bet even now people, they want to murder someone, they just throw their body over there that blends in with all the other bones. So that's horrifying.
I know. It ended up becoming a checkpoint. When the plague kind of started dying down, Napoleon made it the checkpoint for ships to pull up and quarantine before they could come to Venice, go to the mainland. And hundreds of thousands of people died there because a lot of them still were sick pulling in. Until 1799. The last infected ship came from Spain. They were forced to stay at the island because for 40 days, and 8 members died because they were all infected. A ship boy was told he had to stay on the ship at night because they wanted him to guard it, and the rest of the men went to one of the main buildings on the island. And each day the boy would meet them during the day, and then he would go stay on the boat at night. And one night he heard strange noises coming from the wood behind the building that they were staying in, and then he hears screams of his crewmates. But he's like, I'm not going out there to find out what's going on, because he was like, it's dark. It's 1799. We don't have lights. I don't have a cell phone. I'm not doing
I know, really. It's like, I wish I could call my Uber, okay? Maybe that's a lot of fear.
So when he finally, the next morning, he decided to go see what was going on, and he found all 23 of them in one room close together. They were speaking a language that wasn't Spanish. They were Spanish. It wasn't Italian. No one knew what they were saying. The boy had no clue what they were saying. He was the only one left sane. The rest of them went nuts.
That's nice.
And officials came, and no one knew what happened. No one could figure out what happened. So it must have been something to do with the ghosts on the island. And they horrified them so much that they all lost their minds.
Eek.
Yeah. Horrifying. So now we're going to fast forward to the 1800s. The plague was a thing of the past. So they decided, let's use the facilities on the island to put all the mentally ill people we don't want near us. So they decided.
Hey.
Yes, they decided to exile anyone that they didn't want around. This mental hospital, as they called it, or asylum, was not there to help rehabilitate people. It was there just to get them away from.
It was an oubliette.
Yes, it was an oubliette. So it was exile, not to help you. It wasn't to help you.
It was a place to put people to forget about them.
Yes. Many people that got sent there aren't people that would be considered someone you'd need to send to a mental hospital today. Like if you were depressed, if you were gay, you would get sent there.